Please check out our sponsors NordVPN for the best in online security. It's the best VPN on the market, and you can try it risk-free now with a 30-day money-back guarantee by visiting nordvpn.com/heartandhand. That's nordvpn.com/heartandhand, and it's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Hello everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is David Edgar, and as always I am your host, and this week I am all you've got because it's our traditional international break Q&A, and let's face it, there has been a lot going on at Rangers to merit one of these. And what we did was we asked our Chief Executive tier listeners over on our Patreon site, which is patreon.com/heartandhand, to submit their questions, and we'll go through as many of them as we can in the next 45 minutes or so. So we'll start off with this one from Richard, who said, how has the club gotten here again? Oh my goodness, you could write a book on this. In fact, there already has been a book written about this. It was about Enron. It was called The Smartest Guys in the Room. And I do wonder if there's been a bit of that at Rangers here at the moment, of thinking that they know better and that they could just come in and apply things that they have learned at other clubs or in other sectors and other businesses to Rangers, and it would just automatically work. You have to take in, when you come to Rangers, the lie of the land, the local environment, the unique circumstances. And I think that if you don't do that, then you're going to face some of the problems the new owners and the management have done so far, the executive management have done so far. And you're going to create problems, and they've done that as well. I've said this before, that I really do believe that within football, maybe not so much us as supporters, but people can be completely and utterly blinded by the English Premier League. The glamour, everything about it, and a sense that anybody who's done anything in there, even really minor stuff, must be cut from the best cloth, and therefore their experience will translate anywhere else in the world, because they'll come in with best practice and any other management terminology you want to apply to it, and they will come in and absolutely shine wherever they are. And I'm not sure that's the case at all. I think that there's more money in that league, but there's obviously more interest in it, but every club is unique. Every single club is unique. Some people get annoyed about that, but the fans claim an exceptionalism of their club, but it's true. We all are. We all have unique fan bases, so straight away there's something, unique circumstances, unique challenges. And anyone who comes in with a broad brush approach, I think, and thinks that you can just copy and paste from somewhere else, is out of their mind. You can definitely learn things from other clubs. It would be foolish not to say that. And you can learn things from other cultures. The other thing as well is that I think some people do tend to think that English football is just Scottish football supercharged, Scottish football on steroids. It's not. Culturally, it's so different. The makeup of it is so different. And we've seen good players, not just from England, but from Europe, come to Scotland and struggle, because it's a unique environment and a different kind of league. And I don't think the people who'd come in, I think they were aware of it, but I don't think they paid enough attention to it. And I don't think they believed it. And now we have the situation where, unfortunately, we have, as fans, had to reap the whirlwind of that, because it has been just nightmarish these past few months. And that's where we sit currently. There are big questions, to say the least, about the executives at Rangers, about Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart in particular, about whether or not they are remotely close to being right for Rangers. So far, the evidence says no. They would both argue they haven't been here very long. I would argue that we'd expect to see some success and some sign of productivity so far, and we haven't. And therefore, at the moment, the fans are quite rightly saying, why are you here? What are you doing? And so far, everything has been negative. I'm a great believer in giving people the benefit of the doubt, but when all you've done is earn that doubt, then I think it's almost impossible to. So as fans, I think we've every right to say, no, hold on a minute here, do you know what you're doing? Because the early evidence is that they don't. This is from Callum. Do you agree that this breakdown of negotiations with Steven Gerrard must be in some way at the Rangers' end? Surely if timing was an issue from SG perspective, the talks wouldn't have reached advanced stages. Can't help wondering if it was the structure at Rangers, i.e. director of football, heading the football side, that caused the issue. SG would likely want more control. The reality is we don't know. Right, that's the truth, because no party is speaking on it other than just generalities at the moment. So we don't know, is the honest answer. I don't think that there was much that Rangers wouldn't have changed to fit him in, because I think they knew the position they were in with Gerrard. He was an incredibly powerful position, and whatever it is that's been the sticking point, then it's been something that neither could bridge. Also, you don't know if Gerrard arrived with misgivings and then actually through the talks went, you know what, nah, I was right, my first instinct was right. We'll need to wait to hear from him on it, really, before we can do. But given what I just said about the way Rangers have been run for a while, but certainly since the start of this season, of course you're going to think, what did you do wrong? You know, that's exactly what you're going to think. I don't see how you can. It was certainly my first thing. Like, how have you ballsed this up? And that was certainly my take on it when the news first broke. Against that, I mentioned this. I got a letter by carrier pigeon. Got an email from a listener on our Patreon site, and he was pointing out to me, you know, at the end of the day, if Gerrard had really wanted the job, he would currently have it. And I couldn't argue with that either. So, you know, like everything, there's probably blame on both sides. But at the moment, we're much angrier with one particular side than we are with the other. And also, we only now have to deal with one side rather than the other in this. So our sympathies are probably going to go to the other person and not with, in this case, the board. Gordon McCool, do you think we'll have a manager, head coach sorted before Dundee United? We better. So, simple answer to that, we better. Brian Smith, can a head coach position as opposed to a manager work? And if so, does it need a stronger and more vocal director of football? Well, I'll start with your later point first, if I can, Brian, because I saw a really interesting article at the weekend which says that Britain is unique in the director of football, sporting director, technical director, whatever you want to call it, right? Whatever you want to call it. They don't have to deal with the media. If you go to Germany or Spain or whatever, see after the matches, the director of football, they go through mix zones and gets interviewed and have to speak to the press in much the same way as a coach or a manager does. And over here they don't, and it's power without responsibility, because you can just work away in the shadows, this vital role, this really important role, as we're always told, and yet you're never ever up front and having to justify your actions in the way that a manager or a coach is. And I think there's really something in that. I think that it obviously suits your technical directors, because the manager will always be in the line of fire before they are. They're not visible presences. I think we get to them eventually, as we're seeing with Kevin Thelwell, because once it becomes clear that you have a lame duck manager, and Rangers waddled on with ours for, I would say, a good... Well, you left in 123 days, you should have been gone after 60, so there you go, for an extra 2 months of a 4-month tenure. So our attention moved, because we knew he was a dead man walking, and it was like, why did you employ him, and why are you continuing to employ him? To Thelwell. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, yeah, you should be out there front, you should be taking questions. You know, you should be justifying this, because leaving it all to the guy up front, I don't think it's fair. I don't think it happens anywhere else. And if you want to have this model, then you should be prepared to, I think, accept the responsibility that comes along with this position. And these guys are very well remunerated, by the way. They're very, very well paid. So, yeah, I do think that that's something that needs to come into the UK a lot more than it has. In terms of can it work? Yeah, it can work. It absolutely can work. If people are aware of the circumstances of the club, sorry to bang on about that, but also take the responsibility. Rangers need a figurehead, right? We need a leader. And it's been left to the manager to do that, and the ones who've been unable to do that have struggled. And if you look at someone like Russell Martin, whose communication skills were poor, I'm sure he thinks that they're very, very good, but they're not, because communicating isn't just about speaking. Communicating is about getting your point across to listeners, and he never did that because the way he spoke turned off his audience and annoyed them. So someone has to do this. And Rangers left Philippe Clement. Now, I obviously had issues with Philippe Clement, as any listener to the show will know, but we left him twisting in the wind because for long enough there wasn't anybody doing the chief exec or director of football role. And then even when Patrick Stewart came in, he just left them to it. And I thought that was really unfair on him. So if you're not going to do that at Rangers, if you and the executive team are not prepared to do that, to be forward and to be sharing some of that leadership, public leadership burden, then yes, it's going to fail. There you go. Unless you stumble across some football genius who just manages to somehow be like an alchemist and turn base metals into gold, then you're going to find yourself, I think, in a very difficult position. I do think at Rangers we need a figurehead, and for me the easiest way to do that is to get a manager in who can do that. A manager who can bear that brunt, bear that responsibility, have wide shoulders, shield the players, speak to the fans, be able to gauge and control the temperature of the fans. That is a different skill set from someone who isn't good at that but brilliant on a training ground. Michael Beale, brilliant on a training ground. Put him in that role, couldn't do it. So, I think, well, of course it can work, but the way Rangers have done it so far, I don't think is going to lead to success. So unless they've learned something, what is it they say about those that won't learn from history? Yako says, at what point do we actually start to question the intentions of this board and ownership group? Everything they've touched, they've managed to make worse. Is it deliberate? If it is, they're doing a hell of a job. Farewell and Stuart out. I think there's a comfort in thinking that, believe it or not, Yako. I think that it's sometimes more comforting to say, look, this has been so bad that they must be at it, right? There must be a nefarious reason for this, because they surely can't be that incompetent. And in the UK, I tend to find, in my working life anyway, it's because they're incompetent. And that's so far been the case at Rangers. I don't think they've been trying to do badly. I think they've just made one enormous screw up after another. And that's led us to where we currently sit today. So, I think it would be, we do this, we do it with government, and we do it with, because we look at it from the outside and we see them making such simple errors that you think, they have to know. Surely they've got to know better than that. And yet they do it. Unfortunately, our club that seems to be our spirit animal at the moment is Manchester United. Look at them. Look at the amount of mistakes they make that you look from the outside and say, that won't work. But they go ahead and do it anyway. And they're not, they achieve the opposite of what they're trying to achieve. No, I mean, I don't think that so far what they've done has led me to think that they're ready to bankrupt the club or anything. What they've led me to believe so far is that they have been spectacularly bad and got every single major decision wrong, and that's where I'm sitting today. Douglas Innes, is it possible, with no news coming out, that the actual owners don't know whether to shit or piss in regards to who to hire for fear of getting it wrong now Gerrard has pulled out? P.S. Do we need director of football? Such a wanky job title. I think clubs do need someone in that role now. Yeah, the job is much bigger than it was back in the day, and the idea of a manager who does everything, it's too much. There's just far too much to it now. So you do need someone in that role, but like any job, major job, you need somebody good. Technical director or whatever you want to call it. I mean, people get hung up on the names, but it really doesn't matter. It's just overall administrative charge. And you do need someone in that to allow the manager to get on with the football side of things. Are they gun shy after it? Well, this could be superseded. Time will tell. We'll know at the end of the week if they're gun shy. If they don't have anyone in by Dundee United, then yes. But again, I could be sitting answering this, and then in an hour there could be news coming out. So it's hard to say at this point. Gary Stansfield, what is the club's long-range plan for returning success on and off the field? I have no idea, Gary, because I don't know if it's been communicated and I haven't seen it, then great, but I have no idea. I'll say honest answer for that. Only they could tell you that. Kev says, I'm literally devastated it's not going to be Gerrard. Please tell me it's going to be okay. Warning, I'm going to take some convincing. Well, I'd love to be able to sit here and say, yes, everything's going to be great from here. Everything's going to be fantastic. But I can't. And I can't sit here and tell you I have absolute belief and faith in the people who are making the decisions to get it right, because I don't think they've earned it. I don't think that trust is automatic, and nor, to be honest, should it be in these positions. I think that you've got to show people, impress people, and show them that you know what you're doing. And so far, the people in key positions at Rangers have not been able to do that. They've got too much wrong, too much visibly wrong. And I'm sure that they would argue back, well, there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes that you don't see it. And that's very probably true. And there is probably a lot of stuff going on in the background, that's the less glamorous stuff that I don't see, or we as supporters don't see. But that's a wee bit like saying, I've got a girlfriend up at my grand's, you only know her, she doesn't go to our school. It means nothing. We can only judge on the visible stuff. You're getting back to Russell Martin's, will you only see the outputs? Yes we do. And that's the stuff that we will mark you on. That's what your report card will be. And so far, the public stuff, the visible stuff, has been dreadful. So that's why you're getting the sort of write-ups that you're getting. Brian Ray says, is there any part of the club that's currently not a raging bin fire, from youth development to horrific club merchandise? I've got my own thoughts on how we got here. What do you think? There is no part of the club that couldn't improve, no. I don't mean that harshly. I just mean that there are various things that could be improved on. I get a lot of complaints from overseas Bears about the match day coverage in RTV, for they don't think that it's anywhere near close to being what it should be. So, there's one thing that can improve. We'd need a bigger budget. I think that would be legit. RTV have shown with the documentaries they make what they'd be capable of if they had a bigger budget. And I think that it's something that's been underinvested in for a number of years. So I'd say RTV could do better, but it's not their fault, because I think they have talented people in there and they do good work. They just don't have enough resources to take it to the next level. The club merchandise, I mean, yeah, come on. These are simple things. I will buy pretty much any piece of material with an RFC badge on it. And even I looked at that training range in the summer and went, no danger. I mean, it was embarrassing. And again, someone, when they're coming, this is kind of where you need to focus group stuff, because someone should have said, you can't put that out. That's ridiculous, so ugly. It looks cheap, but it isn't cheap, which is kind of the opposite of what you're going for in the clothing trade, one would think. And people aren't going to touch it. And that's what's happened. So 100%, there's loads of room for improvement there. And as for the football side, yeah, come on. I've said for years, youth development hasn't been fit for purpose. We've spent a lot of money in it to very little end. And we either need to get serious about it or wrap it, because at the moment, all we're doing is a very comfortable creche for a lot of youngsters. And I wouldn't even mind it if the lads were coming out and we were selling them, even for a few $100,000 at a time, and they were going on having solid careers. They're not. They're in there for 3-4 years. You know how the cycle is with the youth development at Rangers. It's boys come in, they do all right for the B team, or they score a few goals for the under-19s. Some of them get to the fringe of the first team. Some of them go out on loan and then they get freed. Rinse and repeat. That's not working. Under no, and I don't want to hear the words Nathan and Patterson, right? It was 5 years ago now, and it was once. So, no, it's not working, and it needs to be better. But yeah, I think you could improve right across. And you should always strive to, incidentally. I mean, that's the thing. Never settle. You should always be going, what can we do better? I think at Rangers the last few years, there's been so much firefighting going on across, because it's just been in a constant state, and this comes from the first team. The responsibility for it lies. The football side of the club set the direction. They set the tone, and they set the environment that the rest of the club has to work in. And it can be quite difficult for things like commercial to go out and try and sell stuff to us, and we're all like, get to, because we're so annoyed with what we've been watching on the pitch. But even so, they should always be sitting down going, how can we do better? What are we not doing that fans would like us to do? What can we offer them that they would really like? How can we improve services, match the experience? All of that. You should always be striving for that. Brian says, is it true that the Americans are recruiting the new head coach manager? Well, according to their open letter to fans, that Andrew Kavanagh and Bragg Marathi are leading the search. So yes, we can only go on that. If true, what does that say about the CEO and DOF? Should we read anything into it? If I was them, I would be, because again, in that statement, it was interesting that they made sure that they led with, or that open letter, they made sure that they led with it was them leading it. Sometimes in these things, it's about what they don't say as much as what they do in these communications. And they said here, at the same time, a great deal of important work is progressing across the club, building out of a stable leadership and football structure under Patrick and Kevin's guidance. Guidance, not leadership. Interesting choice of words. And if you don't think, by the way, that these things, they don't pour over every word before it goes out, you're wrong. They do, right? They have a team of people there whose job it is to do that. Every word gets considered. Should we make that stronger? Should we lessen that? Should we, does that get the point across enough? I just found that very interesting. I might be totally wrong. I have been in the past. But, if I was them, I would have been reading that and going, oh. And the fact that they basically made it clear to the football world that it was, the top boys were coming in and going, right, you lot had a go at this. I don't think it bodes well for them. Potter and O'Neill quoted as having spoken to us now. Who would you want? Neither of them have spoken to us. Both of them were approached. Neither of them were interested. Overall, Potter and O'Neill, I'd take O'Neill. Yes, see previous answer. Moving on, Martin says, this is the close I've been to do these Americans have it in them, or the desire to unite the sport once again? Can Kavanagh's apparent last-ditch effort to get Gerrard be evidence they're finally listening? I think they're aware. I mean, I know they're aware of supporter unrest. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, protests are highly visible and people see them, but 13,000 empty seats for a European game, hospitality unsold, club merch just sitting in stores, these are things that they really pay attention to. These are the things that make them go, oh. And all that's been happening. So yeah, they are aware, and you need to balance it. I understand that, but they definitely are aware. Ewan says, although every sacking has been justified, do you think every manager since Gerrard, barely lasting a year, puts off more and more candidates applying, thinking they won't get enough time to make an impact? A few names turned down in an interview following the knockback from Gerrard. Yes, I do, and I think unfortunately we have developed a reputation as a basket case club, where if you don't have an emotional connection to Rangers, i.e. you're not a supporter, then and you're not Scottish, then you look at it and you go, right, first of all, it's the Scottish League, and people with options and ambitions in top 5 leagues, we're not an attractive league, right? There's nothing we can do about that as Rangers. That's not our fault. It's just the reality. It's not an attractive league. And then they look at it and they go, right, fans are utterly raging here. They've had 4 managers in 4 years. Everyone's lasted a year. Left looking absolutely bedraggled. Nah, that's a managerial graveyard. Be career suicide going there. I'm not risking it. And unfortunately, if they think that, then nothing you can say is going to persuade them to come and take the job. And it's the catch-22. I mentioned this on another show. Of to remove that, you need someone to be successful, and that being there makes it more difficult to be successful. So it's this perfect circle of shite. And that's where we are at the moment. So, yeah, I do think that this whole process, the last couple of weeks, and the summer actually, has been a bit sobering for us as a support. I think, I know I kind of faced my own existential crisis about it. The job just isn't as attractive as I think it should be, and I want it to be. And that's, unfortunately, appears to be the reality of the situation. It's just not as coveted a position as I think that it should be. And it's up to us to make sure that or it's up to them, really. I mean, we do our bit as supporters. We keep the club big. It's us that are keeping the club big. That they've got to make this job a damn sight more attractive than it currently is. But that means getting the right guy who raises everything around him, the fans' mood, the success levels, the stature of the club, and then leaves and goes off somewhere because they've done a good job. And I mean, the job was much more attractive when Gerrard left than it is now. And that was the reason for that. And that's what we need to happen here. Bobby Cairns, how do the owners sell this disastrous process? I think they've got to be honest about it. Any attempts at spin now will just not go down well. Like the proverbial turd in the swimming pool, it will just not be something anybody is keen to see. If they're coming out with he was an outstanding can, the one we wanted, we're all going to go right, and you just damage your own credibility with that. You don't need to say we never got our first choice, so here's the next best. You don't need to say that either. There are ways of doing it, but don't try and tell us that 2 a.m. isn't the middle of the night, because nobody's going to believe you. Jock Wallace, in honour of Russell Martin's well-known partner, who's your favourite page 3 girl? Keely. I don't know her second name. Keely. John McLeavy, what would the best choice of manager head coach be for the board now? Are the minimum requirements to win the semi-final and qualify for the next stage of Europe? It seems a long way back to even just win games of football the state Martin has left us in. Will any coach, head coach manager be able to galvanise this squad? Yes, a manager can do that. A good manager can do that. I'm hoping that we get a boost, that sometimes a disastrous manager leaving, the new guy gets a boost just by not being him. Now, if they're not good enough, they can't sustain that. But they should at least get off to a positive start. I think you nailed it there, John, with we need to just win games. I really don't think we're in a position right now to be looking ahead and saying, right, we will be doing this, and then in January, beat Dundee United on Saturday and then move on to the next game. We are game to game at the moment. Absolutely no doubt about it. This start has been shockingly bad. Absolutely disgracefully bad. And people that might say, well, I don't know about shocking, if that's the right word, David. Look at the reaction. I've never seen a reaction like this to what we've seen under Russell Martin. Never. Right. Scoring a last-minute winner and people singing "Get to." That's never happened. Away fans singing "You're getting sacked in the morning," home fans joining in. That's never happened. So it has been shocking, and that's why it's created the levels of upset, tension, argument, whatever you want to call it, that it has. And it is purely because of that. Rona, how do we define what a crisis is, and is it the same definition the Americans will use? Not winning anything year in, year out is a crisis for me, but probably not for long, for them, as long as you keep buying tickets, etc. Well, the thing is that people buying tickets to just watch embarrassment and failure is gone. You saw that with the first European game. Now people are just not going to do it anymore. So yes, a crisis. They might not think it's fair because they'll be like, well, we only came in 3 months ago, but it's reality. Graham says, I have concerns about the new owners. We've been told they know what they're doing, but we seem to continue to make the same mistakes. I mentioned in an email earlier in the season about knowledge of the Scottish game. It appears we have a group in charge who think they know better than everyone else. The appointment of Martin was ludicrous, and the demand fell well put about. If he goes, I should go, raises some serious questions internally. Well, I don't think that was true. The Gerrard debacle is embarrassing, and personally I'm scunnered with the club. I don't actually care who is to blame now. I just want it sorted. I have little faith that the board will pick the right guy. Please just tell me it's going to be all right. Again, I wish I could, but I can't. What I will say is that people make mistakes, right, in life, and I don't like it when it happens to something I care about, but I accept it. What I don't accept is people making the same mistakes and not learning from it. Right, everyone can make mistakes. Jesus, nobody's made more than me. Trust me on that one. But I like to think I've learned from it. I don't beat myself up for making a mistake. I beat myself up for making the mistake again and not learning from it. And that's what they have to do here. And if they're as smart as everyone tells us they are, then they will be able to do that. I accept that they're new into this. I think that you can soak up a little bit more and learn a little bit more from history, both recent and long term to prepare yourself for it. But sometimes you need to unlearn things that you thought were absolutely true when you go into a new place. That it's all right us telling them, this is the circumstances here. This is, what works. These are the fans. And them going, yeah, right, okay, totally get that. But if in their mind they are certain that they know the best way, then they have to unlearn that. Or at least realise, and now they're getting a crash course in it as everything's on fire, going, they were maybe right, we should have done that. So I think there is a process of that. So I don't think it's by any means, an unsalvageable situation and it's going to be like this forever. Not at all. But it will depend on whether or not that they have the gumption, because it's brave to admit that you've screwed up so badly, and the courage to be able to say, right, we will look at different things and do things differently. And if they do that, then yeah, of course we've got a chance. If they continue to make the same mistakes, keep getting the same results. Gordon, is the club at a crossroads that will determine either recovery and stability, or hand our revels just another boost? I believe we need an experienced management structure, and I don't believe the current incompetents are up to the standard. People do their best, but we just haven't hired people with a track record to promote confidence. Unless we get strong, experienced characters on the board, in the boardroom and in the dugout, we will continue to gamble. Your thoughts? Yep. You should try every appointment, as we're always told, every signing is a gamble. Of course it is, but you try and lessen the odds. That's what you try. You try and make it as close as you can in terms of those bets coming up. And that's what Rangers haven't been doing. I think that we've definitely struck for the fences a few times, and we haven't even cleared first base. And that's been an issue for far too long. You hear words a lot like build, but then it's not building, because if you put in a whole new management thing and you have to rip it apart after 3 months, it's not really building, is it? So yeah, you get the foundations in and you build from there. Kevin Thelwell hasn't impressed in the slightest since he arrived. Just hasn't. I mean, that's the fact. The hiring of his son, which I still occasionally when I say that I have to pinch myself to realise that it's not just a weird dream that I'm on, some sort of fever dream. I cannot believe that A, he would propose that. It shows a lack of self-awareness, and B, that people would just nod it through at Rangers. It's staggering to me, absolutely is, that happened. And I think that was the final nail for him with a lot of us. Then you chuck in the Chermiti deal, which already looked wild when we did it. And I think his jacket is on an extremely sugary peg. Patrick Stewart, yeah, anytime I look at him, I get the impression of a guy who thinks he's wandered onto the wrong film set. So I'm not sure if he'll want to stay here long term, because I think he looks around it and thinks, what the hell have I got myself into? That's just my impression from the outside looking at him. But if you don't have the right people, the right foundations, very hard to build something that'll stay upright during the tough times. Elaine says, I have a fear for the future given how it's gone so far. Did the American owners realise what they were getting themselves into when they took us over? If they did, have they managed to get it so publicly and spectacularly wrong? What does their immediate, mid-term and longer-term future look like? No, I don't think they knew what they were getting themselves into. I don't think anyone does. Really, it's that. I don't think managers do. I don't think players do. I don't think any outsider coming in realises what this is. That's just a fact. It's about how quickly they get it. Some people get it really quickly and they're successful. Some people don't get it till it's too late and they're unsuccessful. Some people will never get it. We've just sacked someone who will never ever get it. That he could be at Rangers for 50 years and he would never get it. So yeah, I think that it's now okay. They realise that, okay, we misunderstood that, you would hope. You really would hope to be going, okay, we've done some things wrong here, and that they can then go, right, okay, how do we rectify this? What do we do to improve this moving forward? Because that's the key question here. Derek Johnson, as we look down the barrel of multi-club ownership and decisions being made by mercenaries aplenty, Davey, if you were given the keys for a month, what would you do? I'd probably get jailed for it, in all honesty. But if I was given the chance at Rangers, I'd look round everybody. Not to be too wanky here, I would do a review, find out what people do, what their successes have been against what I think their successes should be, decide whether or not they're the right people for the job, and if not, ship them out and try and bring new people in. I would make decisions emotionally at times, which is why I don't think I would be a very good owner for Rangers, but I would certainly be able to, and not just me, right? You know, anybody listening to this would be able to go in and tell them, that won't work. You need to do this. Yeah, you need to do, however you decide to do it, this needs done. We would be able to identify stuff like that. I've said it before and I'll say it again, and I notice it's been picked up by a few other shows, but they know business better than I do. I will not argue, but I know Rangers better than them, and that applies to every single Rangers fan. I don't know how to run, what is it he does, what Andrew Cameron does, a pharmaceutical healthcare company. I don't know anything about that, but I do know how Rangers fans react to stuff because I am one. And I think any Rangers fans could tell you, that'll work here, that won't work here. Or a guy like this can work here. Obviously the individual, you never know the individual pressures and strains, but that fit, that type of person. Rob says, do you think win percentage to judge manager performance is useful? For me, it seems to be a flawed metric as it allows little room for context. Rolls figures at Sheffield Wednesday, for example, are much stronger than they appeared to be given the awful situation there. No, I don't like win percentage as a metric. Here's the thing, right? When people say, these can't win percentage of 40%, right? Or whatever it is. The reason for that is if you want a manager with a much higher win percentage, then what you need is a title winning manager from a smaller league. So you're looking at someone from Denmark or Scandinavian general or a smaller league around Europe, because anyone with a win percentage that high in a bigger league, a top 5 league or whatever, isn't going to be coming to Scotland. It's that simple. So if it is the be all and end all for you, then I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed. Because someone with a really high win percentage in England, like Sean Dyche, I saw someone say he's got a win percentage of 40%. Oh, it's like in the Premier League. You know, we expect them to get 60 or 70 at Burnley. It's not going to happen. So, yes, I agree with that. I tend to just look at the guy, the club, the individual. I've said this before, so I think Danny Rose is an excellent young coach. I really do. The first I've seen him, I thought, wow, knows what he's talking about, and it would not surprise me if he goes on to a really good career, really successful career in football at a high level. I just don't know if that's right for us. That's my concern. Not about him as a football guy, but can he succeed here? Can that type of manager succeed here? We haven't any examples of it happening, and that's why. And I've been accused of running to a comfort blanket of, the big strong guy in the suit, because that's what I grew up with. So I understand that, and maybe I am. But equally, nobody can show me the tracksuit guy who, has come in with charts and graphs and succeeded at Rangers. It hasn't happened yet. So until I see it, how can I believe it's going to? And that's my problem with Danny Rowe. I think he's a very talented guy, and I think he will be a success. But will he be at Rangers? That I don't know. That I'm unsure of. Neil, can you remind me just how the owners arrived at the decision to go with the playing style, a system they appear to be pursuing above all else? Russell Martin has just failed, and now another proponent of it, Danny Role, appears to be their choice. If this is once again it doesn't bear think about, why are they so obsessed with it? I seem to remember something about 49ers Group having access to unparalleled data collection, and this has been applied to the game in Scotland, but I'm not sure if I'm just imagining it. Danny Role doesn't play like Russell Martin, except that they believe in trying to keep the ball, but he gets forward a lot quicker. He doesn't believe in 100 passes at the back, so it's not the same. And I think that if you're thinking that Danny Role is a Russell Martin clone, he isn't. That's not fair. Do they have he's not a philosophy at all costs guy, but there is this, you're right, this overriding sense. I actually think it's slightly dying now, and I think Russell Martin, this is why I think, by the way, Russell Martin is, for want of a better term, fucked in terms of a managerial career. I don't doubt for a second that some idiot out there will hire him, right? There will be some coach that gets fanny-dazzled by the stats and the presentation and the glamour and all this, right? And give him a job, some championship club or League One club. And he'll fail. And the reason he'll fail is because, one, he's not very good at this. And I think the evidence is in on that, right? That's fundamental. It's why I'd fail at it. But two, the fans will react exactly the way we did now. And the reason that that'll happen wherever he goes is because he's become the poster boy for this fad that has ended. And it was a fad. This fad that, you saw, everybody's got to play the same way. There's only one way to play. Your centre-halves need to have 2,000 touches during the match. All this stuff. Build up, possession, moving players round the pitch 18 inches here and there and back. I mean, Andy told that story at Falkirk that before the game had kicked off, Russell Martin was shouting at somebody to move a foot to the left. That micromanagement. And I think it's just, the fad's ended, and everyone, supporters, I think, had realised it long before. But now people in football seem to be going, oh, right. And never, ever underrate the ability of people within football to follow the herd and follow the trend and all want to be a part of it. And I think Russell Martin has become he's basically the guy who is currently standing out there in a mullet in 1992 when everybody was like, and he's like, what? This was really fashionable not that long ago. No, it's not now, okay? And that's the situation that I think he finds himself in at the moment. So, yes. Next and final question for today. Alistair Simpson says, David, when are Rangers going to stop breaking my heart? Oh, God, I wish I had an answer to that for myself as much as for anything else. And the answer is it has to be soon. And they've got to improve dramatically across everything because people are sick of it and their patience has snapped. And if you continue to disappoint is one thing, but anger supporters, then eventually they'll just, they'll tell you where to go because people don't need that in their lives time after time if you're just slapping them in the face constantly and charging them money while you're doing it. Dominatrixes do that, not football clubs. So, yeah, Rangers need to improve right across the gamut. As I mentioned there, every aspect of the club should be up for review, up for debate. But it starts at the top. They've got to say, what was my part in this? What did we do wrong? What were our misapprehensions? Then they have to hire someone who knows what they're doing, and he will not be a magic wand. Then they need to look at whether they have the executive team in place. In my opinion, they don't. And they need to start making decisions. This is their do-over. This is their mulligan. Okay? You had your go. You made a balls of it. What have you learned? And if you show us that you have, and things start to pick up, the fans will get on board. If you keep doing what you've been doing, you'll keep getting what you're getting on the park and from the fans in the stands. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me today. Sorry if I didn't get to your question. It was a very enjoyable 45 minutes for me. I hope it was for you too. If it wasn't, it's a bit late now, but at least it's free. Anyway, thanks to our producer in London, Mike Lee, Paul Myers. I'll be back next Monday after Rangers, hopefully under new management, take on Dundee United. Until then, folks, have a splendid week and I'll speak to you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.